Now, Dr. Charles Krauthammer, Syndicated columnist and Fox News contributor. Charles, good evening. Great to have you here tonight.
Good to be here.
So what's your reaction to that exchange that we just played with President Trump?
I think Trump is right. I mean, the left has been arguing, Obama, during his 8 years, argued that we mustn't do anything to anger people abroad, particularly the Muslim world, and he cited Guantanamo, a great recruiting agent. That's nonsense. It wasn't used at all as a recruiting agent. 9/11 preceded any of this. That was the height of anger. So I think the president's right. We don't calibrate our position by calculating how much anger it will cause. If we do that, we will end up doing nothing. We have to calibrate our response by what makes sense to keep Americans safe. Now, I think what's happening here is the president's trying to walk back the ban on Muslims, the blanket ban that he announced after the San Bernardino massacre. That clearly is unconstitutional, it's untenable, and it would anger many governments who are cooperating with us, Muslim governments, in the fight against the jihad. So they've ended up with this sort of chopped up policy where some countries, people from some countries that are in turmoil with jihadist movements, like Libya, you showed it on the map, the red countries, Libya, Yemen, Iraq, all of those, we're going to reconsider our policies and suspend the visas for now. The only thing that seems to me to be permanent, there'll be a reconsideration for 30 days from other countries, but that just means we're going to look at the policy as any new administration would. But what looks to me to be more permanent now is the suspension of Syrian refugees and the reduction of the total number from 100,000, which was the Obama objective, to 50. And that, I think, is serious, and that is unlikely to be reversed.
I mean, it cuts that number in half, as you point out. And when you go through the pieces of this idea, though, in this draft, Charles, I mean, many of them are things that already exist in immigration law. You know, for example, in order to protect Americans, we must ensure that those admitted to the country don't bear hostile attitudes towards our country and its founding principle. When you look into immigration law, most of these are things that anyone coming into this country has to sign as it is. You know, a lot of this goes back to the border idea that the president is raising. You know, let's enforce the laws that are already on the books.
Yeah, I think it's quite ridiculous how the left has attacked the idea that if you ask people questions when they want to immigrate, when they want to be a part of our country, such as, and we used to do this in the 50s and the 60s, do you support the violent overthrow of the government of the United States? That's a perfectly legitimate question. If your answer is yes,
then
you're not coming in here.
Exactly.
Now, you know, you may lie about it, but you may have a history that would imply that you do want to do that, in which case, go home. You know, if you want to overthrow a government, overthrow your own government, not ours. So I don't think that those questions, which are essentially ideological, are illegitimate. But I do think there was one thing in this directive, this executive order that we hear is coming probably Saturday, that was interesting and could be alarming. He's instructing the Department of Defense to set up safe zones in Syria.
Right.
Well, that was a good idea 5 years ago when we had control of the skies, the Russians hadn't arrived, and the Assad government hadn't become a puppet of the Iranian government. But that's no longer true. Setting up a safe zone is not going to be something that we can simply say we're going to do and go ahead and do it, like putting up a big apartment building. Yeah. That's not what happens.
That's a great point.
And I think it might presage a Syria policy that could be dangerous.
Yeah. That jumped out at me as well. And you asked the question, you know, where is that safe zone? Where do you find that spot in this world? Charles, thank you very much. Great to have you with us tonight.
My